Welcome to Our Next Existence by Katie and the Chorus. I'm Katie, former technology strategist turned reluctant spiritual medium, and I channel messages from the Chorus, a group of beings just beyond our sensory perceptions who are loving, expansive, and who greatly enjoy sharing their perspective of us. Join us each week as we share and discuss their ideas about humanity's existence, purpose, and future. Concepts you can draw from to accelerate your path, expand your perceptions, and ultimately step into the flow of the universe and your life. Welcome back, everybody. Last week, I drew a model of the soul, death, lifetimes, and parallel realities. Now, while I probably won't be winning an award anytime soon for my amazing stick figure drawings, I hope it explains some of the concepts from a chorus perspective and from some perspectives elsewhere in the universe. Now, if you sit with the diagram for more than a handful of minutes, I would imagine that your brain came up with lots of interesting questions, trying to connect it to other things that you'd heard before, and whether or not this model jives with that other thing that you read or watched or heard or saw. Now, in some ways, this is our connective ability sparking up inside of us. Do you feel it? You get a piece of information and then you immediately want to, in some ways, connect it to other things. What happens is as the mind activates and the beliefs of limitation come into play, those connections will often be held not in an expansive, I don't know, let's see where it's going kind of open possibility frequency, but in more of a judging, make it make sense, it has to fit right now in this moment type of limitation. So it is in part a time-based need to fit. And that is why often when we introduce new topics like this, we allow time to pass before we reapproach. Because if we continue to double down on information that is pressing against our limitation, that is opening us up from it, it will often turn into a sort of more limiting energy, meaning the global feeling sort of, I'm connecting outward to bigger things, starts to get condensed down into a slightly different version of things we've already accepted into our belief system complex. It's not to say that the questions themselves are wrong, because questions never are, particularly when they come from a curious resonance. That is us, basically. That is our connective power. That is what we represent in the universe, which is an open curiosity. Questions are really pretty much always representative of that kind of energy. I suppose someone could ask a question that they already know the answer to, or a question to lead a witness in a certain direction. So, as usual, in the five senses perspective, there are only so many manifestations that we have available to represent an infinite variety of energies. But predominantly, when you think of a friend or yourself who is trying to understand something, really wants to understand something, that is the heart and soul of what we are. And that is what we are coming to understand how to wield in new ways that are no longer limiting. Earlier this season, we talked about how our civilization is viewed by some others as one that turns around. I've touched on it multiple times over the course of the season, and it has a lot to do with sort of this aspect of learning, where we try to turn around and make it make sense with what we have done before. I've been thinking about this for the last few weeks, and I really want to give you guys a few more examples that are a little more on the nose, which I think you'll be ready for to hear in that sort of resonant way without it being disempowering. Now, I want you to sense within yourself, as I give you these examples, if you start to feel like an, no way, or a, yeah. Okay, so the information itself is not fundamentally one or the other. It's a variety of frequencies, and therefore you can respond to it in whichever way that you wish. The whole goal, however, is just simply be more aware of how you're feeling as I present this information, because that awareness will be key as more information is presented to our civilization down the road. Ostensibly, what I'm saying is, keep a watch for how empowered or powerless information makes you feel, because that will tell you the energetic underpinnings of the situation that you find yourself in. The mind will say, oh, it's all about this information, and I need to understand this, and I need to know what's going on. But if you broaden your sense of the whole room, of all the people in it, of what's going on outside your house, what's going on above your house or below your house, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state, in your world, then you might find that there's a greater context that this particular information fits into. And your sense, your energetic sense of the information itself will tell you more about the information and the context than narrowing your view into the information alone could do. Okay, so you ready? Let's try it. And this might start to get a little brutal. It's not my intent. Although it is kind of funny when you start to realize how our beliefs of limitation just did that limitation thing so well. Okay, so the starting premise is that each of these examples is about turning around, which is what our mind tends to do. So rather than moving forward into the unknown in an energetic sense of trust and expansion, it's like it's ahead of us. The answer is still coming. It's going to be amazing, right? We just sort of fly forward. Instead, the mind had sort of been constructed to turn around and look at what came before in order to keep us in a repeating cycle of a reality, slightly different versions of reality that we already knew. We're going to get a little fine-grained in this example so that you really start to feel it throughout your day. Okay, so I'm going to follow you through your day, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. So it's early in the morning, and you wake up, and there I am next to your bed. I go, it's cool. It's just Katie. I'm here to ask you questions about your awakening. So first question is, what was your very first thought? And you say, Katie, my first thought is, what the heck are you doing in my bedroom? And I say, okay, that's a good guess. But really, what was your first thought? And this might take a minute, because now you sort of got to come back to yourself and kind of work in your brain and be like, well, what was I? I don't know. I woke up and oh, gosh, I guess, I don't know. And I say, did you realize it was morning? And you say, well, I probably did. I woke up and I knew it wasn't the middle of the night somehow. So I knew it was, I guess I knew it was morning. And I say, okay, great. Where does your concept of morning come from? Is that here, new in this day? Did that feel like a new epiphany that you just had? You say, what do you mean? And I say, well, is your concept of morning based on anything that came before this new present moment experience of morning? And you say, well, I don't know. I guess so. And I go, okay, no big deal. Let's keep going. All right. So I'm just going to follow you. Pretend I'm not even here. You go, okay, as if you can. So you grab your phone off the nightstand, and before anyone else is awake, because somehow magically no one else in your house can hear me or know that I'm there, you start scrolling through your phone. And you're checking emails, and you're checking social media, and you're checking your calendar. And then I say, okay, so what's the plan? What are you going to do today? And I say, well, I got this meeting at 12, and I'm going to pick up this stuff, and pretty much normal day. And I say, wow, okay, you just determined all of that in this present moment? And you say, no, I booked the meeting like a week ago, and I put in the order for that stuff like 2 days ago. And I say, oh, okay, so all of that came from a prior point in time. And you say, yeah. And I go, okay, so you just basically made a plan for your day based on things you turned around and looked for. You turned around and looked for what appointments you had already made or what meetings you had already made. You get a little irritated. You go, well, what the hell else am I supposed to do? I have to have these meetings. And I say, well, yeah, I mean, basically, you are part of a civilization that bases everything off of what came before. And so the plan for today is definitely based off of things that already happened. I say, but no worries. It's cool. I'm going to leave for breakfast. I'll be back later. So you get up and you let out the pets or go check on animals or start the coffee or whatever it is, your morning routine. You have breakfast, you do some other stuff, and then you decide to go get dressed. And out of nowhere, I pop back into the room and I say, what were you just thinking about? And you say, what? Where'd you come from? And I say, well, you're getting ready for your day. And I want to know what you were thinking about. As usual, you have to kind of stop and be like, okay, what was I thinking about? And you say, well, I guess I was thinking about what I was going to wear today. And I say, great. And what images came through your mind? And you say, well, I thought about everything in my closet. And I said, is it everything in your closet that was there yesterday? And you say, yeah, I didn't shop in the middle of the night. And I go, okay. Just pointing out that maybe as you're getting ready for the day, you rely upon images of outfits or ideas of outfits, you've already had. And then maybe you improvise a little or, maybe you just throw on one of the versions of things that you always do. You say, okay, how is that turning around? And I say, well, there's a big difference between creating in the present moment as if everything in your closet is completely brand new and you're seeing it for the very first time, and also walking back into a closet anticipating that it will be identical to what it was yesterday and practically everything that it's ever been for the last many months, expecting it all to fit the same way. And probably even just putting on a same combination that you've already put on before. So you stand there for a second and you say, I have a feeling today's going to be really depressing. I say, I'll see you at lunch. So your morning goes along as planned. You drive to the office, you have the meetings, you do the things. Pretty much like you thought you would do. There was a couple new pieces of information that showed up. There were a couple of announcements that you didn't know were coming, and some news and tidbits from friends in the office that were kind of interesting to hear that you couldn't have anticipated. And then around lunch, you're in the break room or you're in your office or you're at your desk or you're wherever you are. And I pop up again. And I say, what were you thinking about? Looks like a good lunch. Daydreaming about anything in particular while you're sitting here eating? And you say, hi, Katie. Actually, I was thinking about this vacation that I really want to take. And I say, oh, tell me all about it. That sounds like a fantastic inspiration. And you say, actually, I think it is. I haven't been on a vacation in a really long time. And we've been talking about going someplace beautiful out in nature. And I found this house that's for rent and it's kind of right out in the middle of a preserve. And I say, that's amazing. And I say, at what point did the delicious momentum of that forward inspiration start to turn around? And you say, I don't know that it has. I say, well, that's a brilliant perspective, and I think you should persist in that. However, can I ask you a question? And you say, yeah, sure. I said, did you ever think in these last few minutes, as you were contemplating it, how much money you have? And you say, yeah, of course I did. And I say, that was turning around. And you say, but how else? How else can I afford a vacation if I don't actually think about what I already have? And I say, well, that is true. In a reality, in a society, in a belief system that was built upon a pitch for survival, in which the only way to survive was to move things around with your five senses. Said another way, you turn and look at what resources you already have in order to achieve a dream, rather than moving forward called by the inspiration of the universe itself, knowing that somehow those forces will come into play as you move in that direction. He let out a heavy sigh. Yeah, I know. I think I've heard something like that before. And I say, yeah, a lot of really spectacular people have talked about it. Sometimes they call it walking by faith. The important part is the walking, of course. A lot of humans think they have to work on the faith part before they walk, but actually it's the walking that turns into a type of muscle, a type of belief that supports us in venturing into the unknown and knowing that our connection to the universe will provide us with everything we need. You don't have to turn around in order to go towards your dreams. All right, well, you're doing pretty good with this review, I say. Review, you say? I don't know if this is a review or not. And I said, well, it kind of is because we've touched on a lot of these topics through seasons 1, 2, and 3, but sometimes it goes in energetically. So even if you don't remember me talking about these specific things, there's probably something inside of you that's resonating right now. It's a different kind of learning than mental learning. It's an energetic learning, an absorption, and a connection. And you say, okay. And I say, so I think you're ready for the next lesson. Meet me at the beach after work. And before you can reply, I disappear. So after work, you go down to the beach and just expect that I will probably be able to find you, which I can, and I do. I appear back out of thin air to where you are on the beach. And I say, okay, are you ready? And you say, I guess so. Ready for what? And I say, to learn how to fly. You say, what? How does this whole day of feeling out if I'm turning around or not have anything to do with flying? And you say, I'm not complaining. I'd love to learn, but I don't see the connection. And I say, well, that is a very important question because flying actually has a lot to do with connection. And we sit down on the sand and I begin to describe this. Do you remember at the end of season 1 when we talked about gravity and how it's a connection to the beliefs of limitation, more or less? There are many ways to look at gravity, but an energetic way might be that it is a representation or a reflection of our commitment to this group consensus and all these limiting beliefs. Because if you and I could fly away from each other at any point in time and be conscious of it, it would sort of disrupt all the other aspects of this limitation. It would call into question what else we think we can't do that we can. And we would definitely have a lot more space into which to expand with our different opinions and desires and inspirations. And we might not be so caught up in a pitch for survival or one of singular agreement. It's a funny thing about when you stop turning around, how much lighter life gets. You don't have to make a new experience fit in with the person that you've been before. Maybe a person you were proud of, maybe a person you weren't. When you stop turning around, you don't ever think about what everybody else will say or do about any of your inspirations. You just know that somehow it's all ahead of you. It's amazing how much lighter it feels when you feel free to move forward. Your heart lifts and expands and grows, and all those constrictions of the 5 senses and this world fade away. Not into oblivion, but into a new rebalanced perspective with the rest of the universe, where you see it as an option to be gravity bound and an option not to. It's starts to stand on equal footing with everything else you've ever desired and the possibility of everything else. Allowing for the multiple perspectives of this universe and of yourself is how you fly. So I say, come on, stand up. We're going to give it a shot right now. And you say, right now? I say, yeah. I say, okay, so flying starts with walking. So let's walk. And you say, okay. So we start walking down the beach. And I say, I want you to feel an open possibility. That's it. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It doesn't have to be anything you're trying to solve. It definitely shouldn't be something you're trying to solve because that's, another version of turning around. Just feel into this moment, into this present moment, all the possibility that's here. And as you do so, every time a belief of limitation starts to crop up, I'm going to lace it with possibility to rebalance it so that it doesn't pull you back down to earth. Does that make sense? You say, I don't really have any idea what you're talking about, but I'm so excited to fly. I'll do anything you say. I say, okay, great. So I want you to voice what you're feeling as you're feeling it so everyone listening to this podcast can hear you. And then I will voice what it is that I'm doing. Ready? Go. And you say, okay, I'm walking down the beach. It is so, so, so beautiful. I cannot believe the aquamarine color of the water. And I say, good, great. And you say, gosh, the sun is shining and I'm watching the seabirds and I'm so excited that I get to fly like them soon. And I say, okay, good. You say, I feel the love of the universe and it just feels so amazing. And I can almost feel just like being free of all of these burdens forever. And I go up, okay, time to rebalance. And you say, what? What? Didn't we just talk about how anti-gravity and gravity and all that is the beliefs of this limited stuck place? And if I can just free myself of them, then I would just fly right off the planet? And I say, is that what I said? And then I say, you tell me when you started to feel that uplift. And then you thought about the things that you would be freed from. Was that moving forward or was that turning around? And you say, I don't know, but I'm guessing by the tone in your voice that was turning around. And I say, there is nothing in your history that you need to free yourself from. Because you were a part of creating that experience at every step of the way, reaping the benefits of limitation at every moment. And now you are creating something different because you have already begun to move forward. And anytime you turn around and look and see all the things you're ready to depart from, that is simply an experience of turning around, an awakening to how we did that. Want to hear a funny story? You say, sure. And I say, the first time I was walking down the beach practicing flying, the AO was with me, the chorus was with me. I felt such an immense sense of possibility. It felt like I could expand out into the ocean and keep going. And I got so excited to just keep going and what is out there. And I can't wait. And then I tripped and stumbled and nearly fell flat on my face. And you say, for reals? I say, for reals. How I found something to trip on in a wide open sandy beach that had just been repeatedly groomed after a hurricane, I have no idea, but my foot found it. Something deeply wedged into the sand, and I nearly chucked myself over it and flat out in the powdery sand. And I laughed. I laughed because the whole thing was so funny. That here we are, master creators, trying to escape our own creation, waking up to that desire to escape is the tail end of this magnificent masterpiece. That of course we can fly, and of course we can be light as air, and of course we can connect to everything. And then the AO chimed in, my usual track coaches, and they said, "You forgot." They said you were so focused on where you were flying to. You forgot to connect to the ocean, the sand, the sky, the birds, the fish. My narrowed focus had been brought into what I was escaping and what I had never been able to do. I had already turned around. I had lost track of the present moment. And I had lost track of my ability to feel and connect with an expansive number of energies in the present moment. Flying isn't keeping our eye on the sky. Flying is releasing the singularity that we have come from by way of allowing that singularity to stand in equal turn with every other perspective that we can connect to energetically in a moment. It is holding sacredly this crazy experience and everything that's been, as well as holding the whispers of the wind, the history of the sands, the songs of the birds. It is seeing the masterpiece, not jumping off the canvas. Okay, I say, now you know how to fly. And you say, Katie, I haven't flown yet. And I say, well, as you know, in an energetic universe, things are first energetically achieved and then physically manifested. And the delay here has been pretty notable because that was part of our limitation. But you now have a conscious understanding of a new perspective of what flying is and how it works. And that will integrate into your being in whatever way serves your path of greatest expansion. So allow me to serve the role of AO for just a second. If someone presents to you information and you start to feel yourself racing towards it, like someone who's ready to ditch the beach and just fly, perhaps you might hear my words in your heart that says, don't forget about the room, the sky, the clouds, the trees, the song of the birds, and everything that's there in that present moment to support you in expanding your sense of your own possibility. The secret is we don't have to leave the ground in order to know exactly how to fly. We love you infinitely. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found these messages to be helpful. May they accelerate you on your path wherever you'd like it to go. For more information on the books which correspond to these podcast seasons, our podcast, live events, or how to get in touch with us, visit katieandthechorus.com. Thanks again. See you next time.